Oh, just an addition to what Gerald was talking about, technology and devices and such. Heard a story about this fella who leaves a note for his neighbor. He pins it on the neighbor's door and he says, "I have a confession. I have been stealing and using your wife for about the last 3 months, especially when you're out of town." And the neighbor sees it and he just gets really upset, and he's about to go visit his neighbor who left him the note, and he sees another note on his door and he says, "Sorry, my mistake, spelling error. I meant to say I've been using your Wi-Fi." This time on Just for the Health of It, dealing with the pain of rejection. And if you're a believer, there is much rejection in these end days. We are being persecuted. Even if you're not a believer, the world is such that there is rejection. It's commonplace in the world. So how do you deal with the pain of rejection? Because when you're put down, when you're rejected, you feel angry, you're hurt, helpless, feel sometimes confused, and definitely you can feel alone, humiliated, demeaned. Because when somebody rejects you, two things will always happen. First, you lose confidence in yourself, and second, the way you feel about yourself is damaged, because it's an attack. Rejection is an attack on one's self-esteem. And the more serious the rejection is, the worse a person can feel. And here's a key. There's a big difference between self-esteem and self-worth. Self-worth is knowing who you are in Jesus. It's having your identity set in Jesus. When we are sure that Jesus loved us enough to die for us, to be rejected and despised for us, that's when, if rejection comes in your life, you are able to not have your entire life thrown into a tailspin and set yourself on a road to personal destruction. Now, the world will tell you that when you're feeling down and rejected, do something good for somebody. You know, if you have neighbors who are elderly, you can go and pick up some groceries for them if they're unable to go out and do it for themselves. It'll help lift your spirit. That's a good thing, helping others. Or doing some household chores without even being asked. That's exactly what God always intended us to do anyway. That's His plan. It's part of His kingdom concept plan. Doing for others, because when we plant seeds of goodness, they return to us with increase. So volunteer to do some church work. Witnessing the joy you bring to others comes back to you. That's God's spiritual law of seed time and harvest. It'll come back to you with increase. And that'll help overcome some of the hurt and the pain of that rejection you may have sustained. Let's face it, rejection can make a person feel miserable. However, that pain lessens when you turn it over immediately to Jesus. And we can do that every week. Just before every Sabbath starts, 3 hours in fact before the sunset on Friday, we can lay down those pains, the rejection, everything else that's happened during the week. And of course we have new moons every month where we can do the same. Jesus died to make all things new, and He fulfilled that commission. He took the punishment, all of it, on the way to the cross, and then the ultimate punishment to ease the sting of rejection for us. So people would not have to be demeaned and humiliated. And those who have accepted Jesus into their heart are new creations through Jesus. So set that identity, your identity in Jesus. When you do that, because of Jesus, you are free from the slavery of sin and condemnation and guilt. You are the righteousness of God because of Jesus. You're a winner. These are words right out of the Bible. This is how God views you. You're a winner. You're a victor. You're more than a conqueror because of Jesus. That is exactly how God looks at you when you have accepted Jesus into your heart. So when rejection attacks, if you have and when you have your identity set in Jesus, it empowers you to defeat that demon of rejection. Because to walk with God, we have to agree with God. We have to come into agreement as to how He views us, how He talks about us. And He says He loves us. He accepts us. Therefore, when we're agreeing with Him, you can't really hate yourself and reject yourself. So we need to agree with God that when He created us, He created something pretty magnificent. We are created, all of mankind's created, in the image of the God family. Rejection is a mean spirit. Think of it this way. Satan was rejected by God when he got all puffed up, too puffed up for himself, too prideful. In fact, God rejected him right out of heaven. And he's had a burr under his blanket ever since that time. He has had it in for mankind ever since that time. Satan wants, and in fact he works extra hard, to make us feel rejected by God. Because if we feel rejected by God, well then we have an excuse to reject God. That's exactly what he wants. That's Satan's plan. If we feel rejected by God, then it makes it easier for us to reject ourselves. Maybe you're in a place right now where you are feeling rejected and you find it difficult to say, I accept myself. Well, go to God. Sit with Him. Sit with Him in His presence and tell Him what's on your heart. Tell Him how you feel. Tell Him what's going on. Be honest. Be open with the Father. Choose to acknowledge the thoughts that He has for you, what He says about you. They're all good. They're all encouragement. They're all hope. He loves you no matter what you do or you have done or no matter what you're going to do. Bottom line, He loves you. So learn your identity in Jesus and accept yourself. Step by step. It's a process. And you know what? It is such a wonderful process, really, because it's such a blessing as you walk with Jesus and the Father step by step and experience a change in yourself. You realize that only God can accomplish that change in you. Jesus died so we could all be free from the pain of rejection. And in our walk through this thing called life, when we encounter some hurtful tests and challenges, you know what? Even in the midst of them, even in the midst of those pains, God is still there. And if you really stop and be still and consider what's going on in the midst of a moment of rejection or a painful experience, you will see how God is still instructing us every step of the way on how we need and what we need to do to overcome the challenge. Anything that annoys you is teaching you patience. Anything that angers you is teaching you forgiveness and compassion. Anything you hate is teaching you unconditional love. And anything you can't control is teaching you to have the faith to let it go and give it to God and trust Him completely, and your faith will be built. That's how you work through dealing with the pain of rejection. Give it to God. Talk to Him. Thank you for taking a look. This is just for the health of it. Don't forget to give this video a like, or else I might feel rejected. And we'll see you back here next time.